Hello everyone, welcome to today's session on Vida. It's lovely to see so many of you at this grey lunchtime in the UK as it is. I don't know what it's like in Germany, Lars, but
Sunny
it's
but cold.
sunny but cold over there in Berlin. Right, okay. So yes, welcome once again everyone. Today's session is hopefully going to be a really helpful educative piece, learning piece around the Vida camera. So we're going to be looking at advanced customizations with Vida today. So this is not for those who have never used Vida before, but I'm sure you'll pick up some useful things. But hopefully it's going to be some really great tips and tricks, understanding how you can get the best out of the Vida camera together with the features that are available within IntelliGaze, but then linking that with Grid as well. Okay, so if we go on to the next slide, please, Han, just to give you an overview of what we're going to try and cover today. But most of the session today will be introduced by Lars. So just to introduce ourselves, my name is Adam Waits from Smartbox, Head of Assessment here. I'll know some of you. I work in the UK across many of the UK NHS assessment services. And a colleague from alea Technologies. Lars, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am the head of development from Alea Technologies, and we are the manufacturer of the eye gaze, which is built into the grid pad Vida. And I'm in the eye tracking business since 2000, and I'm the co-founder of Alea Technologies. And we've started Alea Technologies in 2007, and we focused with the goal of bringing state-of-the-art eye tracking into the AAC market. And this is what we ever did since then.
Fantastic. And Lars and I have known each other for quite a long time, ever since I've been at Smartbox, certainly. So since the late sort of 2008, 2009, when Smartbox have been using both alea and now Vida cameras. So focus of today, we'll talk a little bit about alea and Vida, where it's come from. We're going to focus in the main on the IntelliGaze software that supports the hardware, the eye gaze camera. We'll also look at briefly set up in Grid, but the main focus is getting the best out of the camera within the software, the tweaks, the tips and tricks you can use within the software, some of the tools that are available, sitting alongside use to understand what's going on with tracking and somebody's eye presentation, and then finally just to look at what the hardware is that supports this camera. Along the way, we'll take questions. I should say we won't take them along the way, but if you can put your questions into the chat facility, Hannah and I will try and monitor those, and we'll come together at the end there to pick out any key questions that we haven't covered in the piece. So I think without further ado, we're ready to get going because there's plenty to cover. And I'm going to hand over to Lars to go forward. Thanks, Lars.
All right. Thanks, Adam, for the introduction. Alea Technologies. As Adam said, we have a long-lasting partnership with Smartbox, and our focus is eye tracking with AAC only, and we distribute our products worldwide. And we have a broad hardware and software integration. But the focus today is on Vida and Vida Go. Vida Go is basically the same hardware as you find it in the Vida, but it's just a different form factor, which can be used as an add-on module for existing grid pads, not just the new ones, the 13 and 16. Yeah, next slide, please. Okay, the Vida. The Vida is a relatively new module. It came out, I think, 1.5 years ago. The key features you have here on the slide, it's 16 Hz sampling rate. It's quite high, high enough to cover even large and fast head movements if you work with CP users. Try it out, go in and out. It's basically instantly recovers from that 17 milliseconds, which is 1 frame. The distance is quite large, from 50 to 85 centimeters, and it compensates for head movement. That means you can look from any direction within that box on a spot on a screen, and the accuracy remains stable. We say down to 0.5 degree. This is of course a bit user dependent. Everyone who works with iGaze knows not every user can achieve this, but the technology itself allows you to go down to that accuracy, and everything else is then up to the user. It's integrated in the Vida, but the standalone module is lightweight, 105 grams, and it does not come with internal processing for those who are asking this. It uses the PC for tracking. That's why it's a PC. For now, it's a PC-only device, which requires a Windows PC. Next slide, please. Here we have a picture of the Vida and Vida Go, and it's available as a GridPad module for the 13 and later on for the 16 as well. But also there are adapters for older GridPads, 12 and 15, where you can mount the Vida Go. Next slide. There are other camera mountings available, and the range of the monitors which you can use is from 12 to 24 inch. Larger monitors work for some users as well, but 12 to 24 inch is a safe range for most of the users. I'm using a 32 inch monitor, but this is user dependent. That's why you can't promise every user use a 30 inch monitor and it will work. Some other quite interesting features, which I want to stress out later a bit more, is that we have a true 1-point or 0-point calibration, which means you can even start with children who are not willing to look at a single dot, and you just get a calibration which is decent for some applications. And it works in bright environments, sunlight and with glasses. And we have special modes, which I will show you later how to enable them, which makes it possible to deal with typical problems that you have when you work with glasses or if you're on the outside. And especially the outside mode works automatically, which means if you enable it, you can go on the street and back inside, and it works flawlessly in between the switch. Okay, next slide, please. For those who unwrap their GridPad, they might have never seen IntelliGaze. And IntelliGaze, this is what we call, this is a software which does the tracking. But those who are using just Grid and just GridPad may have never seen IntelliGaze. You will notice that you have a Vida device if Grid is started and the alea or Vida camera is connected. If you look in the taskbar and there's such a tiny icon, this is the indication that the IntelliGaze software is running in the background. Plus, the Vida camera does have 2 spots, not seen on this image, but the Lumini has 3 spots per side and the Vida has just 1 spot per side, just as a very quick, if the label is not there, which is not always the case, then you can recognize the IntelliGaze device by this. So if you have a pure Grid-only environment, then IntelliGaze is in the background and you don't have to deal with IntelliGaze at all. So all you do is you interact with Grid settings, you set up the calibration there. The same is true for LookLab. Those applications, they use IntelliGaze just as a driver for iGaze data. And the same is true for other API applications like Ability Drive. An API application is something that is using IntelliGaze just as a background provider for data. However, you can also use IntelliGaze itself without the need of Grid or LookLab if you don't need communication, if you need just desktop access. And then IntelliGaze is visible the first time on your PC, and it comes with its own desktop control to access any desktop application. The difference to all the other applications is that this is built in natively into the IntelliGaze software. So therefore you don't need any additional software, just IntelliGaze, a GridPad, and the camera will do. However, every GridPad comes with Grid, of course, as the name suggests. But this is what we want to have a look at today, that in some situations it can be beneficial, even for users which purely want to use Grid, that they want to switch to the IntelliGaze environment, at least briefly, to do some things there which are not available in Grid. In example, to calibrate users which have difficulties with a calibration built in Grid. And there are some other reasons why some users might to break out to the desktop, to the IntelliGaze world from Grid and switch back. And how to set up a device to do that, this is what we will look on the next slide. These are the key features why you might want to use IntelliGaze in addition to Grid. It comes with a sophisticated desktop control. The goal of our desktop control is that there should be no part in Windows which is not accessible to eye gaze. And we put a lot of effort into it, and I want to show you very briefly the strengths of our desktop control. And there is a desktop control built into Grid, which is fine and which is useful for many users, but for some users, we have special solutions. An example, if you interact with games where you need fast reaction times, or if you need extreme precision with spreadsheet applications, or which is quite new, where you want to access an Android phone, and which means you can access any application on that Android phone on your Windows PC. We also have, as mentioned before, an advanced user calibration. We have an assisted mode where a caretaker and the user are using the device together. It's a simplified mode. And we have something which is new as well, a so-called desktop screen recording, which means you just need a single key press and the device records all the interactions on the screen. And you will get a video with a gaze overlay, a scan parse, which gives you as a caretaker a hint how the user is reacting on your command. So you understand more the capabilities of the user. And I just want to mention that it's not important for most of you. We have something that we call ICC. This is something where we made web apps more accessible, but most users probably don't need this because all of this is built into Grid as well. I just want to make sure that you have heard the name before. If you ever stumble across it, then you know where it comes from. Next slide, please. Okay, desktop control. Why are we saying that some power users might benefit from our desktop control? We have a so-called precision click, which makes it very easy to do operations like cut and paste, where you have to be pixel precise on the screen with your selection. If you want to cut and paste text from somewhere, then this is crucial to do this. We have scrolling, we have an integrated keyboard, we have a live mouse, which enables a lot of games, which opens the world of fast-paced games to users. And we have something which is very unique that we call profiles, which means the eye tracker can adapt to the running application. And this happens automatically. We know which application is running, and then a pre-configured set of settings can be loaded, and then everything and the application is made more accessible. An example, you can use shortcuts to interact with a media player or with a spreadsheet application or a game. And this can all be pre-configured, or power users can configure this on their own. This is a very strong feature to make sure that the eye tracker behaves best in each environment, whatever application is used. Let it be, again, a game or multimedia or some web browsing. Next slide, please. The next reason why you might want to use IntelliGaze in addition to Grid is that we have a very sophisticated calibration. Not all the features that we offer are provided by Grid, because we put a lot of effort into it and a lot of knowledge, and which is even by the time being an ongoing process. It's under permanent development because we learn from the field and we keep developing features, and not everything is needed in Grid. Most of the users calibrate right away in Grid, 50, 60, 70% without problem. But then there are the last users which have special eye conditions. You have a strabism, you have a neglect, you have a nystagmus, and for those users, we have some built-in features that makes it easy to first understand what the user can do or can't do, and then adopt special parameters to make it work for those users, which usually would fail under other conditions. And it's possible to share the calibration between IntelliGaze and Grid, which means if you have a difficult or a challenging user, then you calibrate the user in IntelliGaze, verify that it's working, and then you return to the Grid world and can do their communication, or not just the Grid, you can also use LookLab. Yeah, so we have the camera view, we have a smart calibration. Smart calibration means we have a fail-safe calibration. That means if the calibration fails, if the user initiates it and it fails, or it's worse than the current one, that reverts to the previous one. We have a real zero-point calibration. I mentioned that before, that you should torture every children with a calibration where they have to look at a point. Just use a zero-point calibration and you are good to go with very simple applications. We have things like load and save calibration built into our user interface so that you can load and save, I don't know, yeah, for glasses or for special environments where it was difficult to calibrate the user. And we have a very unique way to analyze the performance of each eye so that you can decide which eye you want to calibrate or exclude. We have a look at it later in an example, which I received yesterday. But yeah, so advanced calibration can be a reason why you might want to use IntelliGaze in addition to Grid. Next slide, please. We also have the desktop recording. I mentioned it once. If you press the play button, you might be familiar with something like this. This is the, okay, no, this was not the video, but if you go back to the previous slide and start the video, yes, this one, then you see this is Grid, and what you get here is the voice of the caretaker and the overlay and the reaction of the user. The blue dots connected with lines are the response, the gaze response of the user, and everything else is what Grid does. Yeah, the cell clicking, and yeah, this can be used in any application of Windows, games, spreadsheet, Grid, whatever. So it's a tool to analyze and understand what the user can do. And yeah, next slide, please. Another reason why you might want to break out to the desktop is that we have an Android phone integration. That means that we mirror the content of an Android phone into the Windows PC, and then we use our desktop control, which is already quite powerful, to interact with any application that runs on the Android phone. And therefore, you open the entire world that the smartphone offers to the user. Messaging, any messenger, not just WhatsApp, but also Telegram, Signal, Streamer, whatever. And games or environmental control apps like Housemate, or yeah, snap a picture, or whatever is possible on the phone, navigation, maps, and so on. It's plug and play, so therefore you don't need any special accounts, just an USB cable connected to the PC, and off you go. It's integrated into IntelliGaze. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so summing up, what are the users that might benefit from IntelliGaze in addition to Grid? Power users, those who want to use Windows Desktop is one of the users that want to break out to IntelliGaze. Those who want to use gaming, desktop, web browsing, multimedia, anything that happens on the PC is made accessible with IntelliGaze to the user. The assisted user could be a target audience. We have a so-called simplified mode that we call assisted mode, where the caretaker together with the user explores all the features. All complex features are reduced, and the access to the running application, let it be Look to Learn or any other games, is restricted to mouse over and click interactions. And another user group which can benefit from IntelliGaze, as said, are users with eye conditions, which is sometimes difficult to realize that users have eye conditions, but IntelliGaze has some tools at hand which helps the caretaker to understand how the eyes of this particular user are working and how to adapt the eye gaze to the conditions that we have mentioned here. Okay, next slide, please. How to set up your grid. If you first unbox your Vida 13, then it's configured as seen in the first column. The grid pad default is that grid is in the auto start. If you turn on your grid pad, it comes up with grid and off you go. If you then exit grid, then the eye gaze is shut down as well. And therefore you have to start it manually if you want to do the calibration in IntelliGaze or use the desktop access of IntelliGaze. However, what you can do is, as shown on the right side of this slide, that you revert the way you start the applications. You put IntelliGaze in the auto start, you take grid out of the auto start, then you make sure that the camera is connected, Vida or alea, and the calibration is set to IntelliGaze. If you have configured your grid pad the way you see it on the right side, then it comes up with IntelliGaze, and the first thing you do, next slide please, Hannah, is that the user or the caretaker starts grid by opening it, and it then automatically connects to IntelliGaze, and then you can do whatever you want in the grid world, and when you then exit grid via a special cell or close grid, then you are back in the IntelliGaze world, and this you can repeat as often as you want. So yeah, if you configured your grid pad as shown on the previous slide, then you can, not just you, the caretaker, but the user itself can switch between both worlds and use the benefits of both worlds whenever he or she wants to. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, I want to show you the strengths of the desktop control. This slide is just the snapshot of our quick start guide, which you can look on your own. I don't want to go through every feature here. I just want to stress out the most important ones, and therefore I want to now take over or share my screen with you just to show you what might be the reasons why users want to use IntelliGaze. Assuming you exited grid, then IntelliGaze is either started automatically or you started manually. And the key features of IntelliGaze desktop controls are, yeah, as said, the goal is to use any application on the desktop which is there with ease. Yeah. So you have the right side, the sidebar, you select an action, zoom click, you look at that, and then you perform the zoom click somewhere on the screen, and then the zoom click is performed. This is as normal as it gets. However, I mentioned it before, if you want to hit the dot on the eye, then you need a special tool, which we call precise click. You choose the tool from the side, you look somewhere on the screen, and then you position your cursor exactly where you want it. With these 4 arrows. And if I want the click exactly in the middle of this icon, then I position the cursor there, and then I do the click there, and this is where I did the click. And this is how you can do drag and drop or cut and paste applications or operations. The first click, precise click, is a coarse localization. Then you select drag and drop from the side menu. First click is a drag operation, then you pull the icon to somewhere else, and the second click on the upper left releases the icon there, and then you move the icon from the first to the second location. So we have precise click, we have scrolling, we have something that we call profiles, which I want to show you. Profiles means the eye gaze adopts to any application. Therefore, I will launch here Spotify. And what you will see right now, IntelliGaze knows that Spotify is now running. And you see this here on the side menu. And if I click this, then this app-specific bar opens. And I can, an example, I could press the play button on in the app, or I just press play button here, which is more accessible. And now Spotify plays, or go to the previous one, or shuffle, and all important features which are useful for Spotify are now pulled to the app bar, which you see at the top. And the app bar is available, or an app bar, not this one, but an app bar is available to any application which is there. An example, if I launch Edge, the app bar would look different, and it's all customizable, those app bars. A user can customize their app bar on their own. An example, app bar here, I have new tab, refresh, favorites. If I click this one, I open the favorite bar and choose that, and I can even close the Edge browser here, and yeah, that's it. So profiles, precise click, scrolling, of course, is available. And if users want it, just use the Android phone. Right now, I have here one just, I don't know if you see it in the video, connected via USB. You just go to the home button, you select the so-called Droid pilot, and then the entire content of the phone is mirrored into the Windows environment. And we also use our app bar, which is now specific to this phone, this home, back, app switch to interact with the phone. Of course, we can click any applications with a zoom click, which I'm doing right now. I'm now selecting Chrome, tapping, and now Chrome is open, or I go to the home page back here. I go to the app switch, then this opens. I choose scrolling, select scroll, switch to horizontal scrolling, and now I can select a new app which is running on the phone. This is a camera app, and this is how you would interact with the phone. And if you're done with it, just close it. Of course, you can do also precise click. Our desktop control with all the features is available within that phone app. We also have this desktop control, which I want to show you right now. You just press Control D. You see here now that the recording is done. I'm now looking on the screen, selecting zoom click, go to the start menu, open the start menu, and press Control D again. And if I now look on in a special folder of IntelliGaze, there we see what I just did. This is 227. It's this one, and this is the recording of which I did right now. So I'm talking to myself in this video, but use this feature to start with the children. You tell the children, I don't know, please do this and this, and then you can see where the children actually looked at. And can draw your conclusions out of this. So Hannah, can you please take over again and show the slides where we stopped? Because the next thing I want to explain, please, next slide, is something. Please excuse the snaps from a smartphone, but this is something I just received yesterday from a therapist, and I want to explain to you how to interpret our calibration data. So this is not fake data, these are real users, and I want to take this as an example, what you can do if you get such a result and what you learn from this, because IntelliGaze comes up with an analysis after the calibration, and this tells you something, and this often points to a solution, the results you will see here. The first user did a 5, it is the CP user with a strabismus, and this means one eye is a dominant one, which is a good one, and the other eye did something totally awkward, which messed up the calibration. That's why we have 0 star. However, what we see here in this result is that the left eye is the good one, the dominant one. This is a meaningful pattern in response to the calibration. And the right eye is not usable for calibration. We see this we have here circles around the crosses. That means there was either no data available at this point for this eye, or the data was that awkward that the data was discarded. That means the right eye is completely not usable for calibration. And if we use it, it will always mess up our calibration. Therefore, we didn't achieve any good data at all. However, the dominant eye, also one point was not accepted, this doesn't matter, gives us some data. It's not that accurate. If the red or the blue dots are far away from the black crosses, this means that the user wasn't able to fixate properly. However, with this, we can work. We can achieve a decent accuracy with a dominant eye and a 5-point calibration. So therefore, you would choose either in Grid or IntelliGaze 2-eye tracking and left eye calibration. And then you repeat the calibration and you should get at least 1, 2, or even 3-star rating calibration. The other user is a CP user as well. CP user means, I think it was a teenage girl who had permanent head movement. And what we see here, we achieved already a 1-star. That means we received some data. However, it can also be improved because the right eye here is a good one, but the other one is not that bad as well, except for the one location where the eye has an outlier. Here it's possible to simply just repeat the calibration because this is meaningful data except for the lower right corner of the screen. This might be an indication that you might want to move up the screen a little bit so that the user doesn't squint the eye in a lower right corner. Because if the user does so, then the camera doesn't see the eye anymore. Either move up the monitor, or alternatively, you can pull the calibration points towards the center of the screen and therefore avoid the corners of the screen where the user tends to squint the eye. So this is just an example how you would interpret these calibration data. We also have an improve button. This is available if the device thinks the data is improvable. And then you don't have to redo the entire sequence with 5 points, but the device will only show the points which were bad. In this case, it would probably show just the lower right point. And this is how you can iteratively improve your calibration with this tool. All these features are available in IntelliGaze. As said, this is not available in Grid, and therefore, for those users where you have the expectation that things might go wrong, you want to start with IntelliGaze first and understand what is the best setting for the user. Once you found good settings, an example, I calibrate always the right eye and always with 1 point, or always pull the points in the center of the screen, then you can use these settings in Grid as well and try a calibration there. But you don't get these detailed results in Grid. That's why you want to start with IntelliGaze first. Another hint which you might consider is that our 1-point calibration is quite powerful. That means if users have problems calibrating the outer points, let it be 5 or 9 points, just go for the 1-point calibration. Because some users, they tend to get tired if you show them a sequence of points, and then they will never be able to calibrate the last 1 or 2 points of a 5-point calibration. However, the 1-point calibration is good enough for some applications where you don't have very small cells to go with, to start with. This is, don't overstress the user with complex calibrations if the easy ones will do it as well. It's good enough. Same is true for 0-point calibration. I said it. This is only available in IntelliGaze. Maybe I show you once again. I share the screen again, how to do this. I'm now sharing my screen again and launching IntelliGaze. And In IntelliGaze, the way to go is always home menu, calibration. The first rule is, of course, set up the device properly, face always parallel to the display, and then 0-point calibration means you just press this button. That's it. Maybe you have noticed it if you ever have looked at the screen, and now device is calibrated already. 0-point calibration means we load a calibration we have tons of eyes in our database. And the average eye, and there is an average eye, and the closer you are to the average eye, the better the 0-point calibration performs. And the more standard your eyes are. I press verify, and now I'm looking at the 5. I'm not exactly at the 5, but this is decent enough. I'm now looking at the 1, decent enough. I'm now looking at the 2, it's okay. It's okay-ish. So this is a calibration which was performed without looking at any dot on the screen. This is just, I have a relatively standard eye, that's why it's okay, but give it a try for users which have problems with calibration, 0-point or 1-point calibration. For any calibration that you do, first of all, our calibration is forgiving. That means I'm now looking away. You see the screen, it waits for me, and after some time I return and I continue. I can even close one eye when I look at the screen. That means it waits for 2 eyes usually, but after some time, it skips this location and continues with just 1 eye. This is extremely helpful if you have users that tend to rotate the head towards corners of the screen where 1 eye is not visible. Here we have the same analysis screen that I have shown you. 1 eye, the left eye, was not visible in this location of the screen. So I could improve it or I can leave it at. If we calibrate more than 1 point, it's redundant. You don't need any point. If I click verify, then I'm looking at the 1, at the 3, at the 5. And as said, from different angles. I'm now looking from this angle, it's tolerant to head movement. Okay, so this is the 0-point calibration, 1-point calibration. Don't over stress your user with complex calibrations if the easy one will work. Share, please, again, Hannah. Okay, calibration. We have some time. We want to go to the questions soon. Tips and tricks, glasses. There's a glass mode. You have figured it out probably. Activate this only if you have problems with glasses. It's in the options of IntelliGaze. If you enable it, it's also active in Grid. There's no special switch in Grid yet, so you have to go to IntelliGaze, enable this glasses switch, and then it's enabled for the entire Vida device, no matter which application is running. Look Lab, Grid, or desktop. Sunlight mode, same way, activated as well. Log settings, you can log the settings of IntelliGaze if you have found good configurations so that the user doesn't messes it up. Next slide, please. Okay. Can you switch to the next slide, please, Hannah? Yeah, okay. Some more tips and tricks, off-screen targets. You can put special functions on the camera. If you look in the spots, then you can trigger some commands. You can customize the bar, call help automatically. What's on the next slide? Let's have a look. This is something I want to stress out as well. If anything goes wrong, and we know eye gaze can fail from time to time, some users are challenging and things don't work out as expected, then don't leave with empty hands. At least start a video recording, which is a built-in tool of IntelliGaze, which provides you consent of the user is required, but which provides you with a set of video recording which is encrypted and can be forwarded to us, and then we can first analyze and maybe train and improve the tracker with this data. We have already about 80 users in this database for glasses, more for everything else, but we have special cases collected where we try to improve the whole device for glasses. And whenever something goes wrong, just send it to us, and either you get an advice what you can do better, or we can even come up with a software fix and software update and improve the tracker over time. this is what we did in the past and that we will do in the future. Next slide, please. Yeah, there are a couple of other tools available. Gaze Assistant. This is an independent tool of IntelliGaze. Try it out. It's similar. It doesn't need a calibration. So therefore, if you want to understand which corner of the screen is problematic, run this tool and it can tell you that something is going wrong with the left or the right eye in one part of the screen. Eye recording tool, I just mentioned it. You will find it under options and help. You do this if anything fails, and you and we all want to learn something from this particular case and maybe provide a solution to something that we haven't seen. An example, if you have a user which has a ventilation mask, just one eye visible, laying in bed on the side and has an eye surgery. This is very special, maybe new, and we can train the tracker to this particular case. And there's a chance that we can do this. We also have a service tool which you should run. It's in the Windows Start menu in the alea folder, which you should run if you want to receive service and support from us. It collects all the log files and PC configuration. It eases up the communication with us if you are in need of support. Okay, next slide, please. And yeah, as mentioned before, the Vida is built into the GridPad, and the Vida Go is available as standalone module also for GridPads, older GridPads, GridPad 12 or 15, or even laptops, as long as they meet the requirement which you see here on this slide. Next slide, please. Only requirement is mounted to the bottom of the PC, and there are mountings available for laptops, for tablets, and for GridPads as well, for older ones. Okay, this was a quick run through the slides, and I heard lots of bings. That means there are questions, and this is what we should take it right now.
Loads of questions. I've tried to answer a few of them along the way. What I will just say, just because you and I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago on mounting underneath the screen, you're absolutely right, of course. But we were talking about it is possible also to use it in portrait mode. So we had a user who wanted to use a screen in portrait, and as long as you mount the camera underneath, then that's also possible. Okay. Right, Han, I don't know how you want to run this. Questions, there's lots. I'm going to pick a few out and fire them at you, Lars.
Yes.
It might be returned to demo in some cases, but I haven't got them all, but I'll try and cover most. So there was a question about almost like the dwell mouse options for, or like I think you would call it live mouse. So dwelling, and you might use that, I guess, for say drawing or for gameplay, but that feature's just available within the options of IntelliGaze.
No, you can, or the user can switch to live mouse whenever he or she wants at any time. You just go to the home menu and switch to live rather than the point and click method. However, in addition to that, you can, home live mouse. As you can see, the mouse is now controlled directly with my gaze, just by going to home menu and toggle this one. Bam, and now it's standard mode again.
Fabulous.
You can also make it a profile configuration. So you can set up a profile and you say, look to learn is always live mouse controlled. And then you don't even have to switch it. It will be switched automatically as soon as the application starts. The profile is loaded and then the live mouse mode is activated implicitly.
Yeah, thanks, Lars. I mean, you might want to stay there because I think some of these will want to return to this screen sharing as we go through. Hannah, also keep an eye on it because I might have missed one or two. I've just got a few things jotted down. I got a question: was there a limit to the number of actions you can add to the app bar? So I think this is really about manipulating what you can put on the sidebar.
Yes, the size of your screen is the limit. I mean, at some stage, you see the Drive Pilot here has the most buttons right now, but it will go to more lines if. It will flip lines. I mean, there could be 1, 2, 3, 4 additional columns of buttons. However, you don't want to put any shortcut of Excel on the app bar, only the frequently used applications you want to use, because at any moment in time you have the keyboard available. Just look in the camera and then you have Control Z, Control T, Control whatever, and the most used functions you would put on the app bar and not everything.
Yeah, so learn some keyboard shortcuts is your message as well, isn't it?
The most important
for a power
ones.
user, yeah.
In a media player, you want to have skip or shuffle and play and stop and not whatever. Yeah.
Fabulous, thank you. So I think this is a suggestion as much rather than a question, but could symbols or other icons be added to the sidebars as opposed to the pre-configured icons that we've got here in IntelliGaze? I don't think you can change the icons, can you, Lars?
The icons in the app bar,
for example,
you can change the text. I mean, every user can configure. There is a fixed part in the app bar and there's a custom part. The fixed part is if we open Edge again, the fixed part is open, close, and minimize, maximize. And this one is custom, and you put a label on it. New tab, refresh, favorites. This is what you put on it. But right now there are no icons, but throw requests at us and we can implement whatever users demand.
Yeah, great, thanks, Lars. So question about Android phone. Can you make, if you're mirroring Android phone, can you make a call with that Android phone?
Yes, we tried this already. I mean, you already hear the output of the Android phone over the speaker of your grid pad or computer. But the other way around, it's not working. But what you can do is you can put the Android phone to the speaker of your phone, close to it, and then use your voice generation tool, let it be Grid, to speak to the other person. So you can do real phone calls with that.
Yeah, great.
And we are not using a Bluetooth connection or something like this. It's a standard screen mirroring technique. Plus we interact with via the Android debug bridge. Here it becomes technical, but we interact with the operating system via a special channel, which is not Bluetooth.
Yeah. Okay, Lars, a few questions about calibration that came up. I'm going to try and summarize some of them, but Hannah, chip in if you think I've got this wrong. So I think there were some questions around, could you talk a little bit about the way calibration profiles are handled? And I think in the UK, we see a lot of people using Grid with IntelliGaze and Grid with Vida and older alea cameras. So maybe just going over the understanding of when we are prioritizing or how it switches between Grid and IntelliGaze for different calibrations. Because there's an option in Grid as well for who prioritizes that as well.
There is an option in Grid. I will launch my Grid right now, and you are familiar, you probably know this option already. It's in settings and access and IntelliGaze camera here. And when you intend to be only in the Grid world, then you set this to Grid. And you have several users in Grid. And then the calibrations are managed by Grid. Because then you can load user 1 and they have a different calibration than user 2 or user 3. But as soon as one of the users breaks out to IntelliGaze, you should set this option to IntelliGaze. No matter whether it's just one user switching between Grid IntelliGaze or 3 users, where just one is switching to IntelliGaze and back. Because this way you make sure whenever you calibrate something in Grid, this is available in IntelliGaze and vice versa. Otherwise, calibrations are overruled.
If you set it to Grid and you went to IntelliGaze, you would not be using the latest calibration you had just carried out.
That's right. Because
and I would just also remind folks that calibrations in Grid are, if you set Grid, are stored per user. So if, for example, you had someone who needed a slightly different calibration in the afternoon, for example, you might potentially manage that by having a different user which stored a different calibration. Alternatively, you could go into IntelliGaze software and switch profiles there Is that right, Lars? If you wanted
In
to?
profile, yeah, in IntelliGaze, you can load calibrations as well.
Yeah.
You can have a
Yeah.
profile, or we don't call it profile because we have used the
No.
wording profile
I,
from something else.
yeah, poor choice of words. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, we call it, we load and save calibration.
Yes.
Maybe it's a
Yeah.
calibration profile, but you can
Yeah.
have a calibration for glasses or one without glasses if the user
Yeah.
switches between with and without glasses, or you can have a profile for outdoor and one for indoor.
Mhm.
However, if you understood and found the right settings for the calibration, repeating a calibration shouldn't be such big of a problem. Only very few users have that big problems with the calibration that it's advisable to save the calibration for later, because it's easier to load their previous calibration than to torture them with repeatedly failing calibrations later on.
Yeah.
However, you always have the option to use the 1-point or 0-point calibration, as said, because the hurt to do this is very low. And it's often good enough. I can't stress this out enough, that 1 or 0-point calibration is good enough if you work with children, and some that don't require to access a keyboard where you need extreme precision.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Another one that came up, Lars, was what's the best way to reset a calibration? Imagine you're switching from one patient or user to another. It might be a piece of kit that's in an assessment service, for example, and you're
Mhm.
starting with someone afresh. What's the best way to
Mhm.
start again with a fresh calibration? Um, would you
Um,
hit the 0-point calibration and then go again, or
or just calibrate the user, put it in front of the
yeah,
device and calibrate.
yeah,
Also, yeah, you
yeah,
can always start a calibration, and does a calibration.
yeah.
So like
Okay.
this. And I mean, you will notice, I mean, some do it, yeah, that you can even share calibrations between users. If the eyes are similar, if they are, then it would perfectly match. However, we are all individuals, yeah, and therefore there can be deviations between users. But sometimes I have seen users where mom was calibrating and children was using the calibration.
Sure. Okay. Right. Another one here from our friends in Sweden. Sunlight. Have there been improvements to manage direct, indirect sunlight?
Um, yeah, we have this sunlight switch, yeah, which is a special optimization, and every part of the tracker is under permanent development at ours. Yeah, just look out for the release notes that we push out and see if there are improvements. Yeah. However, I mean, there are limitations. Yeah, if the sun is directly shining in the camera, then there's a problem. Yeah, but there are some general advice, some guidance, like use a cap, yeah, that covers at least the eyes, so a little bit. This is a general rule if you go outside. But everyone try it out. Sunlight is quite
Yeah.
decent. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
and
Uh,
it's under permanent development. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. And I think you said to me, although it's a mode at the moment in IntelliGaze, it's almost going to become something in future that is just on.
Mhm.
Is that right?
That's right. Right now, you can also turn it on permanently, unless you know that the user is 100% of the time indoors. Yeah? But turn it on because it will automatically detect the outdoor environment. Yeah? It
Yeah.
doesn't hurt, yeah,
Yeah.
right now. Because if you are inside, it goes off, and if you go outside, it automatically goes on.
Yeah. Okay. Another one. I don't know whether you can answer this or not, Lars. But is it someone who's using Grid and Ability Drive? Um, the question, and I have used Ability Drive. I'm not so familiar with it.
Mhm.
Question is, can we adapt a profile for Ability Drive where the grid can be running in the background? And the reason for that is it takes a little while to switch from driving to communicating. I
Mhm.
don't know if you can shed any light on that.
Yeah, I can. Ability Drive is a so-called API application as well. That means it's using the same data channel to IntelliGaze as Grid, so therefore they can't run at the same time. They have to
Yes.
run and operate it
Okay.
exclusively.
Brilliant.
So right now, no.
The answer is
However,
no. That's what, yeah, that's
yeah,
good. Sometimes no is quick and concise.
yeah.
So, so another question, the sometimes the calibration weight, it's or as described here, the forgiving calibration weight is long in grid, or is there a difference when using IntelliGaze? So, you know, when when the calibration waits for the user to look, I think the question is, it waits in Grid. Does it wait as long as in IntelliGaze? My feeling when I've used both is there's still that it sits there and shrinks and waits for you before finally moving on.
Yes, this is what it does in Grid as well, to my knowledge. Yeah, how it's implemented there as well. And I think it even does it in the background that if one eye is covered, it waits, and after some time, it just picks up the eye which is not there. But what you don't get in Grid is a detailed analysis at which point it was stuck later on, so that you can draw your conclusions out of this. Therefore, again, it can be useful to at least know how to calibrate with IntelliGaze, because you catch the last 10, 20, 25% of the users which are challenging with IntelliGaze, which you can't do this in Grid.
Yeah. Okay. Question from Nikki. I think the answer to this is straightforward, and I can answer this if not. But if in Grid calibrations are set to be stored in IntelliGaze, can the user still effectively calibrate in Grid 3? The answer is, for my mind, yes. The Grid might run the calibration. IntelliGaze is storing it, but you're still reverting to that calibration when you're using Grid. So you can effectively use Grid.
Yes.
Yes, that's straightforward, I think. I'm just running through further questions. Will the old Alea camera, so the Cam 30NT, I think is the name of it, Lars, connect to the new IntelliGaze software?
Yes, yes. It requires a license update, but you can use it as a trial mode.
Okay.
You can run it.
Where can you get mountings for a Windows tablet, please? Well, I know Smartbox can supply them, but are there any other UK suppliers of mountings? They can get them from us, can't they?
Smartbox, I think. Yes.
Yep. Just read
if Smartbox doesn't have it, just forward the question to us, and
we can put but we can get them from you if it needs to be. So question I'm reading. Right, does the calibrate button below in Grid 3? So we're really talking about if we make a cell in Grid 3 that's set to calibrate. Just reading this. Does it use the IntelliGaze for the calibration? So fundamentally, a cell that's set up in Grid to calibrate will still have a Grid interface for calibrating. If in settings we've set it to IntelliGaze, it will store that calibration with IntelliGaze software, meaning that if you ever switch from Grid to desktop control, you are happily able to use the same calibration. Just to answer that question from Danielle, I think I've answered that as you've asked it, Danielle. So yes, you'll still get a Grid 3 interface, but you are able to switch them between IntelliGaze and Grid if that's what the user wants. And then from Ashley, if the device is for one user and they access Grid and Windows throughout the day, should IntelliGaze be set as the calibration software mode in Grid? I think the answer to that is yes. Set it to IntelliGaze because you're switching between really two different applications, and we want them to use the same calibration and to load the same calibration.
As soon as you break out to IntelliGaze, no matter if it's just one user on that PC, then you need to set the calibration to IntelliGaze. Otherwise, it's not sharing, not for this user, the calibration between both worlds.
Yeah. Okay. I'm handily being pasted some of these questions by Hannah, so thank you, Hannah. I've got the last one on my list here. I may have missed some along the way. Forgive us, folks, if we have. There have been some comments about be nice to have this API integration in Grid. We'll take that on board, but you now hopefully know a little bit more about where to find them in IntelliGaze. And I should say, if you apply a calibration tweak in IntelliGaze and then return to Grid, you're able to use Grid with the calibration that you've just completed in if you've done that in IntelliGaze software. There's a question here from Krishna. Is it compatible with Windows 10?
Yes, it does. However, we don't recommend Windows 10 anymore because Microsoft support for Windows 10 runs out this year, and therefore it becomes a security risk if you continue to operate Windows 10 in the future.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I know that we're still running some devices with Windows 10 and Vida, and it works quite happily. But yeah, agreed. We're all moving to Windows 11. there. So question from Danielle. You mentioned it's a good idea to always keep sunlight mode on because it'll know when someone is inside versus outside. What about glasses mode? If someone switches between wearing their glasses and not wearing them, should we leave glasses mode on anyway? Or on always, sorry.
Glasses, I mean, it's still under investigation. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt. Yeah, right now. However, we do a little bit things different when the glasses are turned on, and since we right now have already a user base which is very large, yeah, and therefore we don't want to permanently turn it on for everyone right now at this time being. Yeah? So it's more risk control by having the option to turn it off because it's a new feature and we don't unroll this feature out to everyone. Yeah? But if you have a user that is happy with glasses mode, just keep it on. And development is still under progress in this part of the tracker. And maybe this is my last word if we have the time.
It is. I was going to say, Lars, that was the last question. Thank you so much for your time. We will be sending out a link with this recording, and maybe on that link, if we go through the questions and see anything else that we want to pick up on, we can do that in what we send out. But Lars, once again, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure everyone has found it as helpful as I have.
Final sentence, Android is not released yet. So subscribe to newsletter or wait for any announcement from Smartbox. And it will be soon come, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks maybe. Plus, don't forget what we just tell you, but there is ongoing development where we make the IntelliGaze calibration more accessible from within Grid in the future as well. So be prepared. Don't forget this. You will need this, but it will be more accessible soon as well. Development is ongoing.
Thanks, Lars. And final point, just to say, Hannah's posted in the chat a link to a form so you can let us know what you think. I can see lots of people found it as valuable as I did. Thank you once again. But if you do have the time, please just complete that quick Microsoft form. That'd be really helpful. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll sign off now, but thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.